Welcome back to Speducation. I am your host, Brandon Reed, and as always, if this is your first time to the channel, a special welcome to you. Well, it's a new week and we have a new lesson. So, what are we going to be learning about? Today's lesson, DEI and Special Education. Okay, so calm down, all right? Because I know that you were probably thinking, well, wait a second, I thought he doesn't get political. Well, I'm not, okay? I do have my political beliefs, and I don't mind sharing them, but again, I'm not going to share them on the channel. All I want to do is share the information. And right now, there's a lot of talk about how bad DEI is and why it's not needed because it creates division and discrimination in the workplace and in schools. Well, actually, it doesn't quite do that, but I'm going to present the facts to you, and then I'm going to let you decide for yourself whether or not DEI is a bad thing or it's a good thing. But I'm also going to make sure that I explain how it affects special education, because that's the main thing. A lot of parents and a lot of people are worried, especially those with learning disabilities like myself, are worried that by eliminating DEI, it's going to take away their rights and it's going to discriminate against them. So I want to break through all of that confusion and explain it and give you the facts as best as I can. So before we can get into talking about how DEI and special education are related and whether or not eliminating it will affect special ed, we first have to understand what DEI is. And DEI has a lot of different or varying definitions depending on who you ask. So the definition that I found from techtarget.com is diversity, equity, and inclusion is a term used to describe policies and programs that promote the representation and participation of different groups of individuals. DEI encompasses people of different ages, races, ethnicities, abilities, disabilities, genders, religions, cultures, and sexual orientations. It also covers people with diverse backgrounds, experiences, skills, and expertise. Now, what is special education? Special education is instruction that is specially designed to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. So on the whole, DEI and special education don't seem that similar, except for the fact that special education follows many of the same principles as DEI. What are those? Well, let me share them with you. So some of the principles that they share are diversity. Students with disabilities, like all students, represent a wide range of cultural diversity across gender identities, ethnicity, race, nationality, religious affiliation, language, and family and community values. Rather than seeing our students with disabilities only through the lens of their disability category, educators must be, in the words of the Council for Exceptional Children, from 2023, culturally responsive to all students, especially those students with disabilities whose culture may influence their educational decisions and outcomes. This basically means that if a student has a learning disability and they come from, let's say, an Amish community, well, how they perceive disabilities might be different than somebody who comes from the inner city. And so one of the things that teachers have to do is be culturally acknowledging that, because there may be some things that the Amish don't necessarily agree with. And if they don't agree with it, that could affect the way that you teach. Another principle is equity. Equality means each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities. In theory, equality is a great thing because treating everybody equal means that everybody is the same. Everybody's colorblind. Nobody is treated differently. However, equity recognizes that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. That basically means that with equity, you're leveling the playing field. Okay, you want to make sure that everybody is equal and everybody has the same opportunities. But for some individuals that have disabilities, sometimes they need a little more assistance than somebody else. A perfect representation of this is this picture. Equality shows that everybody is treated the same. All three of these kids are given a box. Well, it helps out the first two kids, but not so much the second. Equity, on the other hand, shows that the third kid needs extra help. That means that he needs two boxes instead of one. And by doing that, it ensures that he has equal access to everything that the other two students have. That's the difference between equality and equity. And then the last part, inclusion. Well, the act or practice of including students with disabilities with the general student population. And the act or practice of including and accommodating people who have historically been excluded as because of their race, gender, sexuality, or ability. This is Merriam-Webster's definition of the word inclusion. And as you can see, it has two of them. One for special ed students, and then the other for every other type of individual, including ability. So, diversity, equity, and inclusion are things that are found in special education. Well, no wonder so many people with learning disabilities and parents of children with learning disabilities are worried because DEI is going away. I mean, if I had a disability, I'd be worried too. Wait, I am an individual with a learning disability, but I'm not worried. And the reason why is because there are certain protections that are already in place that protect the rights of individuals like me. What are they? Well, you actually know a few. The first one is the Civil Rights Act of 1964. No person in the United States shall, on the ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Here's another one, the Individuals with Disability Education Act. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or also known as IDEA, is a law that makes available a free, appropriate public education to eligible children with disabilities throughout the nation and ensures special education and related services to those children, supports early intervention services for infants and toddlers and their families, and awards competitive discretionary grants. Ooh, here's a good one. Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. The Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in several areas, including employment, transportation, public accommodations, communication, and access to state and local government programs and services. As it relates to employment, Title I of the ADA protects the rights of both the employees and job seekers. The ADA also establishes requirements for telecommunications relay services. Title IV, which is regulated by the Federal Communications Commission, or the FCC, also requires closed captioning of federally funded public service announcements. That means that when you see things in DEI that say that training individuals to help other individuals is illegal or shouldn't be forced, you're basically saying that if you have an individual in a wheelchair and they need certain provisions and the staff is not properly trained, then that's okay. That's actually violating federal law because the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 says that public accommodations need to be instituted. And then here's another one, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 is a national law that protects qualified individuals from discrimination based on their disability. The non-discrimination requirements of the law apply to employers and organizations that receive financial assistance from any federal department or agency, including the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or DHHS. These organizations and employers include many hospitals, nursing homes, mental health centers, and human service programs. Now, those are just some of the different types of laws that protect individuals like myself and others that have learning disabilities or who are different. Oh, and one other thing, a lot of people will probably say, oh, well, I don't want to discriminate against those people. I mean, obviously, they can't help it. I mean, they have disabilities. I mean, come on, that would be wrong. We're not talking about those people. Now, again, I'm not getting into politics, but whenever you eliminate certain provisions that protect everybody, but you exclude other individuals, that's a slippery slope. So even though these provisions like the Civil Rights Act and IDEA and ADA and Section 504 protect individuals like myself, eliminating other provisions that help enforce those kinds of laws and federal protections, it's a slippery slope. So you can't necessarily agree in helping one group, but not necessarily helping the other. So again, DEI, if it were removed or pulled back or eliminated altogether, wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world, but it would open the door for other programs like the Civil Rights Act, the ADA, IDEA, Section 504, to also be taken under fire because, again, they don't promote necessarily equality, they promote equity. And that's something that is a part of DEI. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you liked what you saw, you learned something new, or you're new to the channel, please click that like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, I always try to present the facts. I don't try to get political or take one side over another because, again, I don't want my channel to become divisive. I simply want to provide you with the information and let you decide for yourself. And if you have questions about what DEI covers and what it doesn't, feel free to research it yourself because, again, that's the one thing that is great about humans is that if we have questions, we ask questions and we research it and we do our own investigating. But again, please don't let this be divisive. I just simply wanted to talk about it and present the facts as is. But if you have any questions or comments, or if you have any topics that you would like me to cover in special ed, please drop a line in the comment section and I would be happy to go over it. And until next time, class dismissed.